Hell yeah.
Great. So nice to be back here. Before we begin, I want to officially thank Bob Scott for what has to be the single most tremendous quasi-introduction I've ever had in my life. If I remember exactly what he said, it was we're going to take a quick 10-minute intermission, and then Mike Rowe, hopefully, will entertain us. My God. Bob, where are you? Where? Hope springs eternal, my friend. I've been managing expectations my entire career, but I've never heard it managed quite like that. Really an honor to be back here with you. As some of you may recall, I was here in 2017, I guess it was. How many of you here tonight were here then? Oh my God. I wish I had a new act. Hopefully, I will. Gina McCarthy, you remember my old boss, that's a bad sign. How many people here tonight that were here 2 years ago remember what I talked about 2 years ago, aside from him? Okay, that's not good, not good. How many people here tonight that were here 2 years ago that remember what I talked about actually purchased a ticket to be here? Good night, everyone. Don't worry. Whatever else I might run out of, I won't run out of stories, I promise. I have 300 of them, all of which I believe I can make somehow relevant and germane to those assembled. Unfortunately, I only have the same message that I had 2 years ago. That's the one I've been spreading around as best I can. For the last 10 years, the country has a skills gap. 7 million good jobs currently exist. For whatever reason, people aren't enthused to pursue them. That's too bad. Complicating that tragedy is the fact that we've lent over $1.5 trillion that we don't have to kids who can't pay it back to get them educated in four-year schools for jobs that don't exist anymore. That's madness. That's my message.
Yeah.
We can get past all the finger wagging and whatnot, but my foundation is alive and well. A lot of good things have happened since I've seen you guys last. And as I was listening to Bob whip you guys into a frenzy, I was thinking, well, really, what do you guys want? I mean, what can I actually tell a crowd of people who get it? I made this point a couple of years ago. I talk a lot to big crowds of people who don't get it. I don't often get to preach to the choir, as it were. So I thought tonight, I would do my best to impersonate an entertainer of sorts and tell you three things that I have learned in my misspent career from people who own guns. I never really thought about it in this context before, but standing backstage and watching what was going on, I realized that so much of what matters most to me, so much of what I realized I knew that I didn't think I did, came from people who own firearms. Three basic lessons I want to talk about tonight. And I say lessons like it's going to be a lecture. Trust me, it won't. But here in a nutshell, if you're taking notes, write these down. Actually, if you're taking notes, ask yourself, why am I taking notes? Why would I do that in Las Vegas? Don't take that. Dumb idea, scratch that. Don't write any of this down. Lesson number one, green is a stupid color. Lesson number two, safety is never first. Controversial, stick with, you guys don't mind controversy, do you? You all right? Okay. We'll dwell on that momentarily. And number three, just because you're an expert doesn't mean you can't be an idiot. These things I've thought about for many years, and only just today did I realize that this insight all came from gun owners. So let's begin with the first lesson, which took place, coincidentally, about 25 minutes north of here on a pig farm called RC Farms. Those of you familiar with Dirty Jobs might remember Bob Combs. He's the best pig farmer in the world. And he owns about 25 acres in North Vegas. He's had it since 1972, I think. And he raises pigs. lots of pigs. And he's been out there in the middle of nowhere, like I said, for decades. Except over time, Vegas expanded and people got a little closer to his farm and things started to get interesting for Bob Combs. He came to my attention when I read about something he did that I thought was entirely unique, which essentially required him to drive up and down the Vegas Strip in a truck that looked like it came from the First World War. You saw it in the clip. I was driving it minutes ago. That was Bob's truck. And what Bob does is he collects uneaten human food from the various buffets in the casinos here in town. And he takes that food back to his farm north of the city and somehow reduces it into an unspeakable bouillabaisse and feeds it to his pigs, which purportedly grow to record dimensions in record time. This struck me as a very interesting thing to explore. So the crew and I came to Vegas, checked into the Super 8 sidebar. If there's a number in the name of your hotel, like an actual number, no. I mean, it's not necessarily bad, but just manage your expectations, Bob. If there's an 8 in the hotel, if there's a 6, the Motel 6 is a lovely place, but it's a 6, right? The Motel Super 8, whatever. Now, if there's a 4, like the Four Seasons, you'll notice it's written out, F-O-U-R. That's good. The Four Seasons? No. Anyway, we wake up in the Super 8, check in. I call Bob. Really, it was the evening before, just to let him know we got here. And I said, my crew and I are going to come out. I figure maybe around 8:30. We can start around 9 if that works for you. He said, oh, that'd be terrific. I won't be here. I'm like, well, that doesn't work for us. We got to have you there. Where are you going? Well, it's not that I'm going anywhere. It's just like I start working at 6. I was thinking you and the fellas could come out at 5. Janet will cook you a nice breakfast, and we could do it that way. Now, my crew, they don't want to get up at 4:30 to drive, north of town. So I said, well, my crew would probably prefer, I was thinking you'd come at 5. So Janet could cook you breakfast. We weren't really negotiating. So the crew and I got up and we drove out to Bob's pig farm. Around 4:55, we arrived, ate a phenomenal breakfast. What is it about farmers that insist on feeding you before they put you to work? Everywhere I go. But they were terrific. And the thing I noticed sitting in Bob's kitchen that's somewhat germane is that we were being watched as we ate. Not just by he and his family, but by the creatures on the wall, of which there were many. There were elk, and there were deer, and there were some creatures that honestly I didn't recognize. I think there was a mountain lion, or what do they call them out here, a catamount, or there's everything. Bob was a serious hunter and an accomplished one. And I asked him about it, and he said, yeah, I eat what I kill, and I kill a lot. Cool, I got no truck with that. It's just interesting to have all these different creatures watching you eat, There was a symmetry to it that I found interesting. Anyway, we finished breakfast, and he says, let's take that ride. So we went out and we got in the truck you saw in the video, and we drove into town, and we collected, I'd say, 2 or 3 tons of uneaten buffet food from this very hotel and 9 or 10 others like it. And then we drove back to his farm, and he took me in a super secret back way. So we came into his backyard at an odd angle, and I saw something that is really kind of indescribable, like a Bugs Bunny Roadrunner cartoon. It was this contraption that had been built that had 6 conveyor belts on it that went increasingly up, and up. And at the top, there was a big platform and a giant cooker about half the size of this stage. And Bob took the uneaten human food in his ancient truck from World War I and dumped it into this sorter. And the two of us rolled up our sleeves and began exploring the food for utensils, because in his words, it's very bad to feed a pig a knife. So we start pulling the utensils out of the food, which is a slop, and the slop goes up the conveyor belts. And then I go up the scaffolding to see what's happening at the top, and at the top the food goes in and it gets distilled. And I've never seen anything like it. If you can imagine all of the uneaten food in all of these casinos slowly cooked and reduced into this viscous kind of bouillabaisse and then fed down through a tube back into the same truck. Incidentally, Bob Combs built this contraption with parts cobbled from various junkyards all over Las Vegas. And it was just an amazing thing, standing up there, watching all of this food get slowly distilled, and then the wind shifted. And I don't want to drag you through every detail of this like I did 2 years ago in the sewer. Some of you might, maybe you don't remember. Maybe I should have told the sewer story. I don't know. No, the smell of all of that simmering cooked food was unlike anything I'd ever experienced, coupled with about 5 tons of pig crap coming up from the bottom, and then just the smell of the pig itself. The combination was amazing. And it took my breath away, and it made my eyes water. And I turned to Bob. We're about 3 stories up, looking down into all this swirling mess. And I said, what do your neighbors think of you? And he said, oh, my neighbors hate me. And I said, do they really? He goes, oh, I don't know if they hate me, but it's been difficult the last couple of years, And I said, because of the smell. And he said, no, it's not difficult because of the smell. It's difficult because green is a stupid color. And I said, I'm not sure I'm tracking you. And he says, let me tell you what happened. I've been here a long time. I've been here 30 years. And every year, the people get a little closer. And now they're right on me. And then they go around me. And the development just keeps happening. But I'm still here with my 20-some acres and my 200 pigs. It smelled like a pig farm then. It smells like a pig farm now. People got together in their little committees and they wrote me letters asking me if I could make the pig smell go away. No, I can't do that. And then they got together and they formed committees and they hired some lawyers, and the lawyers wrote some letters saying, it'd be best if you made the pig smell go away. I can't really do that. And then the lawyers got some builders together, and the builders and the people in their little committees basically formed a little Congress, and they offered Bob a bunch of money to sell. And he said, nah, I don't really want to sell, I kind of like it here.
Awesome.
So there's Bob. He was 80 when I met him back in 2005. 80 years old, standing on top of a cooker, right on the verge of telling me why green is a stupid color. And I'm absolutely titillated at this point, because in dirty jobs, it never fails. Once you get into the day, and once you really get people to loosen up, you start to learn things you didn't expect to learn. And I said, you really got to walk me through it. And as we were talking, he pointed to a car that pulled in. It was a guy from the EPA. He said, oh yeah, he comes now, every about 2-3 times a month. What's he want? Don't know. He just walks around, he looks at drains, looks at my ladders. Every now and then he writes me a ticket for something. He just comes. OSHA comes out too. OSHA came out just 2 days earlier, he said, to gauge the structural integrity of my cooker. I said, what'd they decide? Decided it was all right, but they'll be back. So what's happening? He says, well, what's basically happening is, and the Humane Society. I hear from them now every couple of weeks. The lawyers and the committees had called the army of angry acronyms to let them know that a troublemaker named Bob, who was living on what used to be the outskirts of Vegas, had the temerity to get hogs to market without getting the stink off them first. Green's a stupid color. So wait a minute. It is ironic when you think that, he's on if that's for me, I can't talk now. Unless it's Bob Combs, in case. So what happens, here you got a guy who not only eats what he kills, he cleans up after himself, and he cleans up after the entire town he lives in, and the environmentalists are coming out to give him all kinds of grief. Conservation and environmentalism seem to be smashing into one another in a very strange kind of collision. Green is a stupid color. What do you mean, Bob? What do you mean? He goes, well, why would anybody who's seriously concerned with preserving the health of our planet rally behind the color of money? I'm like, well, Well, I suspect if Al Gore were here, he would say, no, it's not the color of money. Al Gore sounds like Jimmy Stewart when I do. It's not the color of money, it's the color of life, it's the color of renewal, it's the color of spring, right? Green, it's great. And Bob goes, that's bullshit. So he said, well, you got a better color? He said, how about any color? How about yellow? He said, yellow like the sun. There's no life without photosynthesis. There's no photosynthesis without the sun. I'm walking right at you, freaking you out. I don't know, there's a stage. I feel like I gotta come down here. But this is what Bob Combs is doing. He's like, why? Yellow is better than green. Blue, he said, is so much better than green. Blue, the color of the oceans from which life emerged, depending on your view of evolution. The color of the sky, blue, where God lives, when he looked down and smiled upon creation, depending on your view of spirituality. Any color, he said, would be better, but brown is the best. Like, you want to riff on that a little bit? He said, I'd be happy to. Brown always comes before green. Everything that's green on this planet grows out of the dirt. The dirt is brown. Brown is fundamental. Green is symptomatic. Brown was here first. It's also alphabetically superior. Wow. Standing there on a cooker, 40 feet in the air with an 80-year-old man, I suddenly had the entire drama of our environmental seizure summed up and distilled, just like the food in front of me, in a way that I had never thought of before. Times. Green might not be a stupid color, but it ain't the only color. And I learned that from Bob Combs, a pig farmer. Thus concludes the first lesson.